Hello, this is Solo1 with not a video review, but a PSA. Over my years as a collector, I've noticed that some of my figures began aging, and some more noticeably than others. One of the things that I noticed first was the yellowing of the blister package of the figures. This happened even when they are kept in a dark cabinet, and have never been exposed to natural light. I suppose this may never be avoided, but so far it does not seem to affect the integrity of the blister itself, so for the time being I'll let it pass. The other issue, and the most pressing one, is the degrading of the figure due to the gloss finish it has. You may have seen my other videos and noticed that I complain a lot about the glossy finish of the Revoltech and how it is a dust magnet. Turns out I was wrong about it. It has never been a gloss finish, there is no gloss finish at all, but it turns out that the stickiness is something much worse, and it's not that. You see, the sticky goo that covers the Revoltech EVAs and arguably any PVC figure is in fact a byproduct of their manufacture. When the PVC and ABS are manufactured, they are added substances called plasticizers. These inorganic compounds are used to change some properties of the resulting plastic, most notably how flexible it will be. As the figure ages, the plasticizers start to leach out of the figure in a fashion similar to sweating, and form this dreaded sticky layer that not only traps dust, but that also yellows, making the figure look old and discolored. In the older figures it does not look obvious, but in this EVA Unit 8 Alpha you can clearly see a yellow grime building on top of the figure. Now if you look at the head, you can clearly see that the white on the center of the video looks more yellow than the white around it. The same goes for the yellow on the bicep. The white part on the bicep here, it looks significantly more yellow than the forearm, and it's more obvious even on the white part in the middle of the Revoltech's torso. Now, for a long time I searched for some method to clean it up without compromising the paint or worse, the integrity of the figure itself. After jumping from side to side, I finally found a solution, or more specifically a solvent. You get it? A solvent? Well, moving on. This method was described in a blog called Tiro Finale a couple years back, and it uses a cleaning product called Goo Gone, which is this one in here. Now this liquid is made of some unknown solvents, but it does smell like lemon, so it can't be all that bad. Basically, the combination of solvents in this cleaner helps dissolve the leached plasticizers and helps remove them without damaging the paint or the plastic. Since I was not about to risk one of the Evangelion Evolution figures, I decided to experiment with, what else, an Evangelion prototype. I decided to use the TV Eva dolls here because the noticeable grime that had been building on this figure, it was a perfect example of how bad it can turn out. What I did was basically follow the Chiro Finale block steps. I disassembled the Revoltech as much as possible, keeping track of where each joint was supposed to go. After that I began rubbing a cotton swab impregnated with the solvent against one of the pieces. After a few minutes I started to notice that the layer of grime began dissolving. Since this was being too time consuming, I dumped all of the pieces in a shallow bath of the solvent and waited for about 5 minutes. When I took the pieces out, I was surprised to see that the goo had turned into a layer of dry skin of sorts, and I was able to peel it right off with merely rubbing with my fingers. I repeated this procedure with all the sections except the hip and the thigh, and the torso of the EVA, since those sections are too large. So I opted to use the cotton swab method. Now this is time consuming, but it will eventually remove all the goo away, and it will help to get into every one of the tiny details that the EVAs have on their backs, especially around the socket of the umbilical cable. After that I cleaned the figure parts on a bath of water with a mild soap, since the glue away is a bit oily and appears to be composed of non-polar solvents. After a couple of rinses in clean water, I dried the EVA perfectly and reassembled. You can see that the figure now looks shiny without looking sticky or dirty. Since it turned out so good, I decided to give it a try with my EVA Unit 2. I followed the same procedure and then tried the stroke. While removing the layer of plasticizer, I accidentally removed some of the details of the ankle guard of the EVA. Now this is nothing major and can be easily repainted. You know, I have a knack for repainting figures. But it got me thinking, what would happen if I accidentally removed some of the tiny print of the arms or the shoulders or the paint work on the head? So I decided that for future cleanings, I'd have to be extra careful with those sections. In the end, the Unit 2 returned to a non-sticky state, and I was surprised to see just how much grime and goo I was able to get out of only 2 of the figures. Now, finally, a word of caution. While the chemical does not feel harsh nor smells toxic, it is a chemical solvent nonetheless. After I finished working, I noticed that my hands and fingers were dry, so I'd recommend that you use latex or nitrile gloves to use it. Overall, this was an interesting experience. Appropriate figure maintenance is required to ensure your collection lasts for a long time. These 2 EVAs I use for experimentation are almost 15 years old, and if all of the other figures go by this, I think it's better to know what will be the best course of action to take. I'll be posting later how the cleaning goes with the EVA Unit 8. Now, since making images for my blog or my Tumblr is too time consuming, I've decided to maybe open an EVA Poser's Instagram account to share some images more frequently in there. I'll be posting the link later, and probably I'll be posting some pictures of how the cleaning of the EVA Unit 8 went there. So, just keep your heads up if you want to start following there. And well, this was Solo1, thank you for watching. If you have questions or comments, leave them in any of my videos and I'll answer as soon as possible, and thanks for watching.